In the heart of the city, where the rising sun struggled to break through the smog and high-rises, the streets had already come alive. Lagos never truly slept. It simply dozed for a moment, then awakened, bustling, beating like a restless drum. And in that heartbeat, weaving through the chaos in a worn yellow taxi, was Chinedu. He adjusted his cap, eyes scanning the road, fingers gripping the steering wheel as if it were the spine of his future. "Another day," he said softly, more to himself than to the empty car. "Another chance." The car radio crackled with morning gospel, a preacher reminding listeners that blessings came to those who kept the faith. Chinedu chuckled under his breath. "Faith," he whispered, "you've carried me this far." At that moment, a young woman waved frantically from the curb, briefcase in hand, heels barely keeping up with her steps. Chinedu pulled over. At that moment, a young woman waved frantically from the curb, briefcase in hand, heels barely keeping up with her steps. Chinedu pulled over smoothly. She opened the door with urgency. "Please, sir. I'm late for a job interview. Can you take me to Victoria Island? Fast, please." Chinedu met her eyes in the rearview mirror. They were filled with nervous fire, the kind of desperation that meant everything was riding on this one morning. "Fast is what I do," he smiled, throwing the car into gear. "But safe, too. I know the roads like I know my own heartbeat." The car leapt forward, weaving gently through the growing traffic. "Thank you," she breathed. "I've been trying to get this job for months. My family's counting on me. I can't afford to miss this." Chinedu's eyes remained on the road, but his tone softened. "What's your name?" "Ada." "Nice to meet you, Ada. My name is Chinedu." She hesitated, then smiled. "Thank you for stopping. Most taxis didn't even slow down. Most taxis are in a hurry to get somewhere. Me, I'm in a hurry to do the right thing." Ada clutched her bag tighter. Her voice dropped. "I'm scared." Chinedu raised an eyebrow. "Scared? I failed before. Interviews, tests, opportunities. I keep wondering if I'm just not good enough." He let that sit in the air for a moment, and then spoke with the calm of someone who had tasted disappointment and still kept going. "Sometimes," he said, "the world tests you harder right before it blesses you. It's like it wants to know if you're really ready. That's all." Ada was silent for a moment, watching the world blur past the window. Vendors opened stalls, workers filed into buses, and children balanced school bags larger than their backs. "You sound like someone who's been through a lot," she said quietly.
Chinedu chuckled. He swerved down a narrow alley, dodging a pothole with the ease of muscle memory. "This is the shortcut." Ada glanced at her watch. Her face lit up with relief. "Thank you." Chinedu gave a small nod. "Just remember, when you sit in that interview room, don't ask yourself if you're good enough." The taxi pulled up in front of a tall glass building. Ada practically leapt out. She turned back, beaming. Chinedu smiled as she disappeared into the lobby. He sat for a moment, watching the revolving doors spin behind her, then sighed and reached into the back seat to tidy up. That's when he saw it. A black leather briefcase. It hadn't been there before. Ada must have left it behind. He opened it slowly. Inside, documents, a sleek laptop, and something else. Stacks of cash, neatly packed. More money than he'd seen in years. Maybe in his life. His hand froze. For a moment, silence filled the cab. He looked around. No one was watching. He ran a finger along the edge of the bills. Crisp. Clean. No. His heart pounded. This could change everything. Rent, school fees. He looked back at the building where Ada had disappeared, then back at the briefcase. He closed it gently. "But it's not mine." He pulled out his phone. "Let's make this right." Chinedu sat quietly in his taxi for a moment longer, the briefcase resting beside him like a sleeping secret. He opened his phone, unsure what to search. With Ada job interview. No use. But then, beneath the leather handle, he noticed something in embossed silver tag. A name. C. Akafer. He blinked. Akafer. That name sounded familiar. In Lagos, some names carried weight. Respect. Power. Legacy. He turned the tag over. An address. Victoria Island. Well then, he murmured. Eh? It took him nearly an hour to reach the address. The traffic had swelled, people rushing into their daily grind. By the time Chinedu pulled up outside the tall office complex, the morning sun had climbed higher, casting gold and heat across the glass windows. The building's front desk was polished, the kind of lobby where even the plants looked expensive. The receptionist eyed Chinedu with hesitation. His faded uniform and dusty shoes didn't match the marble floors. "Can I help you?" she asked. "I need to see Mr. Akafor," Chinedu replied. Eh? She frowned. Eh? No. She hesitated, then picked up the phone. A few moments later, two suited men appeared, security, no doubt. One took the briefcase cautiously. The other gestured for Chinedu to follow. The elevator ride was silent. At the top floor, the doors opened to a lavish office, wood-paneled, art on the walls, a view of the lagoon stretching into the horizon. Behind a wide desk sat a tall man in his 60s. Salt and pepper beard. Stern eyes. A presence that demanded silence before he even spoke. He looked up. "You're the one who found my case?" he asked. Chinedu nodded. "Yes, sir. And you?" "Yes, sir. It was left in my taxi." Mr. Akafor leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled beneath his chin. He looked Chinedu up and down, studying him. I did." Yes, sir." Chinedu met his gaze. "My mother always told me." A silence settled in the room. Heavy, thoughtful. Mr. Akafor stood and walked around the desk. "Do you know what's in that case?"
2 million naira. Cash. Sensitive contracts. A laptop with business dealings worth more than most people make in a year. Chinedu said nothing. Mr. Okafor nodded slowly. "You could have disappeared. Vanished with all of it." "I could have," Chinedu replied. "But I didn't." Another pause. Then, unexpectedly, Mr. Okafor smiled. "You have something rare, Mr. Chinedu. Mr. Chinedu. You have integrity. That's worth more than gold these days." He paced for a moment, then turned back. "I want to offer you something." Chinedu blinked. "Sir? I need a new driver. My last one, well, let's say trust is a problem these days." Chinedu hesitated. "Sir, I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Mr. Okafor replied with a smirk. "It's a good job. Decent pay. But more than that, people like you are hard to find." Chinedu looked down at his hands. He hadn't come here for a reward. But something about the man's offer felt different. Like a door he hadn't even known existed had suddenly opened. "All right," he said. "Yes." Mr. Okafor extended his hand. Firm. Solid. "Welcome aboard." As Chinedu left the building that day, briefcase returned and contract signed, he couldn't shake a feeling deep in his chest. A feeling that this wasn't just a new job. It was the beginning of something else. Something bigger than he could yet understand. The days that followed moved swiftly. Chinedu arrived early every morning, dressed neatly in his new uniform, his taxi now replaced by a black luxury SUV that glided silently through the streets like a shadow. He waited patiently outside meetings, drove Mr. Okafor to and from the office, to client lunches, to discreet evening gatherings behind tinted glass. But even in silence, Chinedu was watching. Listening. Learning. Mr. Okafor was a man of sharp words and sharper instincts. But something had shifted in him. A weight he carried in his shoulders. A tension in his tone. Sometimes, he'd sigh in the back seat, running a tired hand through his silver hair, as if replaying problems that had no solutions. One afternoon, while driving through a koi, Chinedu glanced into the rearview mirror. "Rough day, sir?" Okafor looked up from his phone, mildly surprised by the question. Then he leaned back. "You could say that." Chinedu didn't press. He never did. That's why people talked around him, because he didn't force them to. Mr. Okafor continued. "This company I built, it's strong. But families? They're more fragile than you think." He paused. "My children, 3 of them. 2 sons and a daughter. The boys want my money, my name. The daughter, she doesn't want anything from me. She left years ago. Said I cared more about my business than my blood." Chinedu remained quiet, his hands steady on the wheel. Now, everyone's circling. Smelling weakness. The board is nervous. Sales are down. Investors are pulling back. And in the middle of it all, my sons are fighting like vultures. He laughed bitterly. Funny how success turns into a curse when your own blood can't be trusted. Chinedu kept driving, the silence between them now heavy with truth. That evening, after dropping Mr. Okafor home, Chinedu waited outside, sipping from a flask of tea. The mansion gates swung open and out came 2 men in suits, arguing as they walked. "I told you, Dad is getting soft," one hissed. "We need to take control before he gives it all away." "Relax," the other replied. "Well, let him burn himself out, then we step in. The board already likes us better." They passed Chinedu without a glance, slipping into a waiting car. Chinedu's brow furrowed. He didn't like what he heard. Not just the words, but the tone. Like 2 jackals waiting for a lion to fall. Later that week, Mr. Okafor had a visitor. A young woman, dressed in plain office wear, walked into the compound. She didn't arrive in a chauffeur car. She didn't demand attention. She waited at the door patiently, holding a file. Chinedu noticed her immediately. Something about her eyes. Determined. Familiar. She handed a document to the guard and walked away. No fuss. Curious, Chinedu approached. The guard looked at the envelope, then back at Chinedu. "Another job applicant," he shrugged. These days everyone's applying for something. But Chinedu knew better. The next morning, he found the envelope still lying on the entry table. He glanced at the name. Ada Okafor? He blinked. It couldn't be. But it was. The same Ada had picked up that morning. The woman with fire in her voice and worry in her eyes. So she was his daughter. And she hadn't even told him. Chinedu stared at the letter. Her handwriting was careful, respectful. A request to join the company as an intern. Nothing grand. No demands. Just a chance to earn her way. He considered telling Mr. Okafor. But something stopped him. Instead, he slipped the letter under the office door himself. A few days later, Chinedu saw her again, this time inside the office complex, carrying a clipboard, dressed modestly, pushing a cart of files. No one knew who she was. Just another intern, they assumed. But Chinedu knew. And so did Mr. Okafor, though he said nothing. Not yet. The tests had begun. Not just for Ada. But for Chinedu, too. One evening, Mr. Okafor entered the car looking tired, but thoughtful. You ever feel like everyone around you is wearing a mask? He asked. All the time, Chinedu replied softly. Mr. Okafor nodded slowly. I hope you all enjoying the story. This was half part of story. The second half will be uploaded soon tomorrow.